So we just did a segment where we went after right-wing snowflakes because they melted down on the internet when the Church of Sweden basically said, look, God is omnipotent, all-knowing, and therefore, I don't know why we're putting God in a gender category. Why would God have the same measly flaws and categories that we live in, that we are subject to? So God's above it. So they took away the gender thing. For example, they said it's no longer, in that prayer, it's no longer our Father who art in heaven, it's our parent who art in heaven. So what they're saying is take the shitty categories of, biological fucking who has a dick, who has a vagina, who's a male, who's a woman, that we don't think that applies to a God, okay? Now that's silly right off the bat because your character's already not real, okay? But then the right wing melted down over it because they're like, oh, God is obviously a man. We all know that. I'm not a misogynist, but God's a man. We all know God's a man. God's perfect, which is why he's a man. And he's got a dick, and he's got balls, and he pees from his penis. Weird design, but that's what God does. And God farts sometimes. God is a man. He's perfect, but he's exactly like me. Pretty sure that's not perfect. So the right wing flipped out, melted down. They think they're serious people and truth tellers, but they're utterly unserious people caring about stupid things. So we went after the right wing snowflakes and the social injustice warriors. But I took some shit the other day for going after the social justice warriors. The left wing snowflakes, if you will. So here's my left punching segment of the day, which I'm contractually required to do at least once a month. I said, my left punching hot take is I really wish Facebook didn't do the 71 genders thing and the left on college campuses didn't deplatform right-wing speakers because it makes you look like self-obsessed snowflakes and a caricature of the right's portrayal of you. Don't at me. Well, of course, people added me. And that's fine. You do that. You add that as a joke at the end of it. And there was some backlash. It's actually not as much as I expected. It was just a little bit. I think more people agreed with me than disagreed with me. But look, here's my fundamental claim when I make a point like this. I think that there are certain things that are gateways to people becoming standard right-wing douches. One of those things are these issues. Now, ultimately, nothing hinges on it. Hey, Facebook, you want to have 71 genders? Whatever, there are your 71 genders. You get to pick from all of them. And some of them are basically the same thing. Like there's cisgender male, cisgender man. Okay, those are two separate ones, but that's really only one thing, so. But, okay, so you want to have your 71 genders. Nothing hinges on it, but I do think it makes you look silly. I do. I think that makes you look ridiculous. When, there's certain ones like gender fluid. I'm a pretty open-minded dude. I'll admit it took me a while before I understood transgenderism, but now I get it. And it's a thing that clearly exists in the world, and we need a word to describe it. Transgenderism, somebody born biologically male, and they say, no, literally I am the opposite of this. I'm basically in the wrong body. I'm female, even though I was born biologically male, or the other way around. I get that now. I didn't used to get it. I totally get it now, and that's a thing that we need a category for. Gender fluid? I mean, I saw a news report where a dude literally changed it 1 minute to the next. He's sitting there, he's like, I'm a man, and I'm gender fluid, though, so sometimes I'm a man, and oh, it just switched. I am now a woman. Well, does it make me a douchebag to say, I don't believe you? I don't believe you. Whereas with the trans person, I think that notion is super real that they're experiencing and a thing that obviously occurs in nature. Because you go back even to the year fucking 1232 and there's records of people who are trans people effectively all the way back then. I don't see that for gender fluidity. People weren't in the year 1600 going around. Oh, and by the way, 'twas a female, now I am a male. Oh, I changed again, now I'm a female. Chip, chip, cheerio. Like, I don't see that. I think it's kind of made up. And also, even if it's not made up, who cares? There's no actual discrimination against you. There's no, oh my goodness, we have been treating the gender fluid so wrong this whole time. No, there's real discrimination against gay people and against trans people. There's no denying that. For gay people even. So you'd say, we have gay marriage now, get over it. Well, no, because over 20 states in the U.S., it is legally okay for your boss to fire you because you're gay. Same thing. There's clear discrimination against transgender people when it comes to hiring. You can get into other things like the suicide rate. You could say that's a little different though as well, whatever the case is. But there is clear discrimination against them. When you look around the world, there's over 10 countries that still kill people for being gay. Okay, huge problem. How many countries don't have gay marriage? Many countries say it's just illegal to even be gay and they'll lock you up. So there's real discrimination against these groups of people, and what they're experiencing is 100% real. If you say you're gender fluid, to lump that in the same category is almost disrespectful to gay people and trans people. And then like agender is another one. Is that a thing? I don't know. I feel like I'd want to ask scientists. Like, the person is claiming to be neither gender, but are they actually literally neither gender, or are they like a man and they're saying, I'm not either gender because I don't want to be? I don't get that. To me, that doesn't seem like a real thing that would exist in people's minds. A real thing being straight, being gay, being bisexual, being trans. I see it. There's a lot of evidence for it. The other stuff, and here's the bottom line. It looks like people who are just really, really self-obsessed and just looking for excuses to talk about themselves. Like, that's what it looks like to me. That's what it looks like to me. When there's 71 options. So again, nothing hinges on it. It doesn't relate back to policy. But I think what happens with many people is they look at that and they go, oh, so this is the left. The left are the people who, are so serious that they are like, you don't understand. There's 71 genders, and if you disagree, you're like totally a bigot. And it makes left-wingers look bad. You could say this is concern trolling, but you know what? I'm actually concerned about how it makes the left look, because that is a little ridiculous. When it comes to deplatforming people on college campuses, I don't think you should be afraid of Ben Shapiro or Steven Crowder or Milo Yiannopoulos giving a speech, because they're really not that bright. And again, many people might disagree with me on that, but they're just regurgitating the same kind of talking points that Sean Hannity or Bill O'Reilly have been doing since 1996. They were wrong then. They're wrong now. If you give them a platform and then you give somebody like me the ability to respond to them after they give their speech, I guarantee you the overwhelming majority of people will walk out of that speech going, Kyle's right and the other ones are wrong. So I don't know what you're afraid of. And then the more you ban them, the more you push it underground, the more it festers, where nobody can see it, the more powerful they become. If you have it out in the open and you counter-argue right to its face, you say, I'm not afraid of you, and then you beat them. So, and I know some people now don't agree with this kind of free speech absolutism, but I honestly believe it's the best way to fight back against this stuff. But on that front, it's not just the left-wingers, let's be clear. Because Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks was gonna go give a talk at a college. They already invited her. There were Trump supporters on the board who said, we don't like what she said about Trump voters, so she's disinvited. Where's the outcry over that? Every other week, there's seemingly a pro-Palestinian professor who gets fired for being pro-Palestine or is going to give a speech, and then they're disinvited from giving a speech because of their take on Palestine. Rania Khalek was going to go talk on Syria. Left-wing talker. She was disinvited. So this isn't, don't get it twisted. It's not like the snowflakeism goes one way. When it comes to deplatforming people giving speeches, go ahead, let Antifa give a speech and see what happens. The right-wingers all of a sudden will say, no, we're not in favor of the free speech. And let somebody who's an avowed Marxist go give a speech on a college campus. All of a sudden they'll be like, oh, did we say freedom of speech? What we meant is that certain ideas are too extreme and we got to exclude them. So, the snowflakeism cuts both ways in this front. But bottom line is, I'm against snowflakeism across the board. And I think that's the only position that makes sense. I want to make less people interested in fucking Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is a guy who is so massively overrated right now because he's a guy who says porn is bad. He's a guy who is a deep and committed Christian apologist. And he's a guy who argued for hours on end against the concept of truth. Literally. Don't take my word for it. Go watch his first, talk with Sam Harris. I'm not a huge Sam Harris guy, but there's no doubt that he was 100% right in that back and forth. Jordan Peterson literally argues against the concept of truth in the way that you and I understand it. He comes up with his own cockamamie idea and definition for it. So here you have a guy who argues against postmodernists because he says, well, they're against truth. And then he literally argues against truth. Massively overrated. But guys like this are gaining more power because I think there's a gateway drug to the right, which is, looking at the left and saying, these guys are obsessed with gender. They're obsessed with identity politics. We're the people who fight for Medicare for all. We're the people who fight for free college. We're the people who fight for a living wage. We're the people who fight for ending the wars and ending the drug war and improving your life through policies that are proven to work. And here's all the evidence as to how they work. We're right. They're wrong. They want to eliminate the estate tax. They are wrong. That helps the top 0.2%, screws over the rest of the American people. We beat them every time when we argue about jobs, when we argue about economics, when we argue about taxes. So keep that the main issue. And if you don't, and you get too mired in the identity politics, that you're creating the gateway to the Jordan Petersons. In some cases, the Jordan Petersons gateway further into the Ben Shapiros. In some cases, the Ben Shapiros go further into the Steven Crowders. And then next thing you know, and granted, this is a slippery slope argument, and it's certainly not the case in the majority of times, but there have been people who go totally down that slide, and next thing you know, they're with the Richard Spencer and the white nationalists. And by the way, I'm not excusing the people who are making their own. I'm not seeping their agency from them. They make their own decisions to decide, oh, I think this person now makes sense, and I think this person now makes sense. So it's no excuse. They're wrong, and they're horrendously wrong, and we must argue against them. But if we clean up our own house and we get rid of the silliness on the left, I do think that makes it so that the far-right extremists, over time, their appeal gets cut in half. They lose half their followers because they go, I don't know why you guys are arguing against these left-wing people. They seem totally reasonable.